Good evening. Welcome. This is the Greenfield Public Schools School Committee meeting for Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. It is a special school committee meeting. It's being held fully remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts June 16, 2021 order extending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law GLC 30A Section 20, which if you haven't heard already, GLC 30A Section 20 will actually be my next tattoo right on my forearm because I've gotten to say it so many times. Okay, let's do a roll call and call to order. Secretary John Visad, would you do a roll call, please?
Member Karen?
Here.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Here.
Member Hollins?
Here.
Secretary Johnson Musad, I am here. Chair Peretti?
Here.
Member Wall?
Here.
Mayor Wiedegardner? We have a
I do
quorum.
believe, yes, Mayor Wiedegardner will be absent. She did let me know that ahead of time. She has a mayor's meeting of some sort this evening. So if we may, I'd like to try to have a motion at this time to reorder the agenda and have the fiscal year 22 budget update and vote as our next agenda item. Would anyone like to move that?
So move.
Member Wall, in a second.
Ekstrom.
Okay, Member Ekstrom. Any discussion? This is just, we have a business manager is known for trying to be in more than one place at once, and tonight is no different. So we're gonna just accommodate that and get this budget vote done, hopefully. Any further discussion or concern about moving that? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Member Karen? Is that a yes, Member Karen?
Yes.
All right. Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Peretti?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Why don't you go ahead, Mr. Paquette, please? Or if Dr. Houle is going to introduce it, however that's going to work. Go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Houle, I'll turn it over to her to start. Just first of all, thank you everyone for accommodating me. It's, but just thank you.
Dr. Houle, are you ready to go? Maybe you're on mute. I don't see you. There she is.
We still can't hear you, Dr. Hull. I don't know if, unless someone else can hear.
Dr. Houle, it does look like you're on mute. Are you able to unmute? Are you having technical difficulties? I can probably unmute you if you.
There we go.
There you go.
I think I've got it. All right. Too many buttons to push, too little time. All righty. So we're going to present a reset of the FY22 budget to you this evening for your approval. And just to kind of give you a little background, the entire senior leadership team is here this evening to present their parts of this reset, and then we'll turn it over to Andy for the numbers. So the reason why we're having this conversation is, if you remember back at your budget hearing, you voted a needs-based budget of $20,425,011. And the budget that was approved by the city council is $19,731,080. And so we've got a local shortfall of difference between those two of $693,931. We also know that we have some federal stimulus money that is coming our way. Part of it is ESSER 2, which is funding that started actually with fiscal year 21 and is working through September 30th of 2023. Because we were in a pretty good place in fiscal 21, or that we felt as though we didn't really need to access this. So we have that full 1.8 million to rely on between now and September of 2023. The parameters of this funding is to be sort of pandemic related and recovery mode, and a minimum of $10,000 has to be used to help address mental health issues. A second pot of funding then came through with the approval of another stimulus package that's slightly over $4 million, and that can be spent from now and until September 30th of 2024. And again, it is pandemic related recovery from the issues that happened with pandemic related learning. The stipulation on this funding is that a minimum of 20% must be used to address, as the federal government calls it, learning loss. So that's about $818,000. So this plan addresses both the structural deficit in the local budget, as well as accessing some of these funds that are coming our way to be able to do some things to help build the school district back up. So this budget assumes a return to full in-person learning, and that's by order of the Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education. His expectation is that everyone will return to full in-person learning. There will be no remote options next year for students, and so that's the lens through which we have done this. We also want to make sure that we are providing for equitable resources and for excellence in both our curriculum and in our instruction of students. So a couple of things have sort of driven this conversation. And the first is what's known as a multi-tiered systems of support model in schools. And this is a direction that's been happening at the state level for a while. And this is backed by a lot of research at the federal level or across the country in terms of taking a look at how we can help students meet the expectations that we have of them. So there are 3 tiers of support. Tier 1 is really the regular classroom. And unless a student has really significant needs, the premise is that there will be a universal support for all students at Tier 1. All of this gets driven by looking at assessment data, and by assessment I don't mean MCAS, and we'll talk about that a little more in a minute. But what it does is that we use some assessments to identify students who may be struggling at Tier 1 or have mastered Tier 1 and need some more in-depth. And so we'll use those data to provide Tier 2 supports, which means small group instruction several times a week, and it might be extra interventions to help with either some skill gaps or struggling with learning, or it might be those students who have mastered the basic curriculum and can get some interventions that help them dig deeper. Again, through assessments, if we find that Tier 2 is not working for students, we then can go to Tier 3, which is a more intensive level of support, which again provides for those students who are struggling even more so to have more intensive supports their way. And there are 3 lenses through which we look at this. Academic is one, obviously, if we're having trouble with the curriculum and trying to master it, or we've mastered it well enough that we need something a little more intense to that academic focus is there. There's also a behavioral focus to this, that students should be able to be supported to have good behavioral health in the regular classroom, but some students need a little extra support, so they might get a Tier 2 support and work their way back down into Tier 1. Tier 3 would be a more intensive support for those students who have some behavioral supports that are needed. And now we're looking at this same model as a lens for social emotional learning for students in terms of addressing mental health as well. So this sort of model will drive the move forward and will drive what the budget is looking at for FY22. So within this notion of different tiers is something called in the research universal design. And universal design has 3 areas to help build students as expert learners. And the first area is providing multiple means of engagement, or giving students that opportunity to understand the why of learning. Why are we doing this? How do we engage them? Oftentimes we hear from students that, or we see problems with attendance or getting kids to school, and oftentimes it's really a problem of engagement. Are we engaging kids in a robust curriculum? Are we giving them the why of learning? Is it purposeful, and does that purpose motivate them as learners? The second lens through which universal design is built is through representation, which is the what of learning, those basic skills that students need to learn, know, and be able to do. And so we also want to provide multiple means of being able to deal with the curriculum and to be able to access knowledge. And with the ubiquitous advent of the internet and little devices like this guy, you know, we can certainly access knowledge in a variety of ways. And then the third lens on universal design is providing multiple means by which students can actually express themselves in learning. So this is the how of learning. How do we set goals with our students? How are we more strategic about how we work with our students? How do we give them voice and choice in their learning? And then how do we implement in a way that is strategic and meets every student's needs? So the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has come up with this sort of acceleration roadmap for equitable recovery. And the federal notion of learning loss is kind of a deficit model. So what the state is trying to do is to get us to reframe that as more of an acceleration of learning. How can we help students make up for gaps that may have happened during the pandemic? So there are 3 levers within this that the DESE is pushing districts to think about. And the first is to develop that sense of belonging. And one of the things we were talking about in our own senior leadership team is understanding that as we bring students back into our schools, that we're going to have to sort of reset those routines and rituals that we have for students, and how do we develop norms in a new normal in our schools. So making sure that we're attending to having our schools being warm and welcoming places, that we are looking for students who might be struggling with mental health issues and how we can help them with that. How do we help students who have felt like they have been marginalized and not provided with equitable access? So we really want to embrace sort of this new normal in the post-pandemic, looking at culturally responsive practices that make sure that all students are engaged. Again, the monitor understanding is, again, based on assessments, not MCAS, but using a universal assessment. We use the MAP assessment in grades K through 8 for reading and math that help us give a baseline data as to where students are. We do that 3 times a year so that we're constantly monitoring students' achievement, and then having teachers look at student work samples, observations of learning, and other local assessments that will help us monitor their understanding. And then making sure that we have access to grade appropriate instruction, that the data drive the priorities. In the commissioner's mind, and this is one thing I agree with him about, is there is no sense in going back for a year and a half to try and make students up through the curriculum. We just need to find out what they do know, stick with grade appropriate curriculum, and figure out how to move them forward in a way that makes sense. And the tiered model of instruction helps do that. So that's really, as we began to reimagine the FY22 budget, how we wanted to be able to do that. So the budget priorities, and each person here tonight will speak to them in their own context, but it's making sure that we have a safe, welcoming environment for all of our students, that we're constantly assessing learning through what's known as a formative assessment, that we're really just, you know, dipping in often to see what our students know and can be able to do, so that we're sure that we're giving them the appropriate grade level curriculum and materials. And the work of the new assistant superintendent position will focus on the processes. How do we implement curriculum? What does that look like? How do we choose instructional materials that support the Massachusetts frameworks? All of those kinds of things. And then another area of focus for the new assistant superintendent will be looking at high impact instructional practices that really provide the scaffolders that all learners need at their point of need, and making sure that those practices are equitable across and between grade levels. So each one of our leaders tonight are going to speak to their own cost center and how that this is done. The senior leadership team has really worked hard over the past few weeks to draw a through line both between schools and programs to ensure that this is a coherent plan and provides continuity for our students. So I'm going to start by turning it over to Nancy Putnam, who's going to talk about the priorities for the Academy of Early Learning.
Good evening, everyone. At the preschool, our number one priority is that we are discontinuing the sub-separate classroom and moving into a fully integrative, inclusive preschool. This means that all children will be in the same classroom. I just heard a beep. I'm sorry. Children with disabilities will participate in all classroom activities with all the typically developing children. The atmosphere will help to bring equity throughout the entire school as they get ready to move into the elementary school, where that is also a priority. Our second priority we're working on is to continue to implement our tiered social emotional learning curriculum, which at the preschool is the pyramid model, and continue work being done by the Behavioral and Mental Health Task Force that we are now about to enter into our third year. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. This is Casey Putnam, principal at the Discovery School. And at the elementary level, we will support the multi-tiered system of support and universal design for learning by aligning our English language arts and math instructional practices, focusing on equity for all our students.
Hi, everyone. This is Michelle Fedamore, principal at Federal Street School. And building on what Casey just said, we are really excited about continuing that UDL, Model Universal Design for Learning, and incorporating that into our tiered system for social emotional support for all students. So that will include responsive classroom for our students and training for our teachers.
Good evening. We're very proud of this budget because it represents us pulling together to look at curriculum, to look at the whole child, not only academics, but the social emotional components, and also the interventions. The pandemic gave many things to us, and one of the things it gave to us is many new teachers. Our teachers need the support in the classroom, as well as some coaching, and this budget reflects looking at curriculum and interventions and providing support for teachers.
Good evening. At Greenfield Middle School, we look forward to strengthening our math instructional practices, continuing work that we've begun this year of examining curriculum resources and instructional materials to pilot them next year, and sustaining some training that we've been doing for the last couple of years regarding math instructional practices by adding a coaching position, someone who can take our educators from where they are and continue to build on what they've been learning about innovative math instructional practices. We also want to introduce an interdisciplinary hands-on learning experience of STEAM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Mathematics, through a makerspace learning experience in our Unified Arts curriculum offerings. And finally, we want to continue the work that we've been doing with growing our own capacity and understanding about racial justice and social equity through ongoing professional learning for our educators and some outreach to our families and community.
Hi everyone, Karen Patnode, principal at Greenfield High School. At the high school, we have begun the process and will continue analyzing our course curriculum for each of our classes. We're also aligning new electives for the new civics curriculum for grades 9 through 12. We're also partnering with GCC on an alternative pathway for some of our struggling students and working in collaboration with them. We're going to continue the social and emotional work of the behavioral mental health grant that we started this year and implement some Tier 2 interventions with the prevention program as well as the Tier 2 TLC to assist students who may be struggling in the classroom. And then we're also going to continue our social justice work at the high school with implicit bias workshops for professional development for our staff. We also have every student getting a copy of this book is Anti-Racist by Tiffany Jewell. And we are lucky enough to welcome Tiffany Jewell next year for an author site visit at the high school. We're also partnering with the Greenfield Public Library and GCC in reading The War for Kindness as a professional development for our staff on building empathy and incorporating that into our curriculum and our culture of our school. And lastly, we're continuing our partnership with Community Action and our Stand Up Youth to continue student-led leadership in the social justice area.
Dr. Houle, I think you're on mute. Can't hear you at all.
Dr. Holzberg, I think is.
Oh, sorry. Hi,
Oh,
hi
yeah,
everyone.
I got it.
Okay, I am.
Morning, Carol.
Ironic that the technology glitched with the director of technology. Hi, everyone. If this last year has taught us anything, it's taught us in that we have had a very increased awareness of the importance of digital tools for teaching and learning. And so going forward, we want to work with we being the technology department wants to work and continue working on curriculum, but this time with an assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, our tech teachers and our classroom teachers to strengthen the GPS technology curriculum based on the Massachusetts Digital Learning Framework and the ISTE Tech Standards. Everything will be aligned with Tier 1, 2, and 3 implementations in the district. We also want to support our teachers and technology with technology professional development to ensure that they feel confident and comfortable with the learning tools that they use to provide instruction, monitor understanding, and develop belonging. And finally, it's very important that our district technology tools and networks work well enough to support the universal design that Judy talked about and the cultural responsive practices that we implement in district in order to maintain equity of access for all our users.
And now I'll unmute first. And we'll move on. So last is Dr. Dickinson, who's going to talk about Pupil Services. Dr. Dickinson, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. I had unmuted myself, but then someone must have muted me. Anyway, good evening, everybody. As you heard, I'm Janet Dickinson. I'm the Director of Pupil Services. And in the budget planning work, we focused on a belief system underlying all of the Pupil Services Department's work, which focuses on equity, inclusion, the provision of support while addressing the needs of all students. And as Judy mentioned earlier in the presentation, we want to work on moving all students forward. In accordance with the belief system, we focused on the following 3 initiatives, which were prioritized during the planning process based on an assessment of need over the past school year. So one, as you've heard a lot about already in this presentation, is social emotional learning and mental health supports. We want to continue the strong work that actually started years ago in the middle school with participation in an and Mental Health Academy, and they're going into their 3rd year in that, and then by the over this past year. Secondly, we focused on using funding to strengthen therapeutic special education programs for a group of high-need students from kindergarten through high school. We want to enable them to make progress and also to remain in district schools close to home and get the supports that they need. And lastly, we focused on training and special education intervention materials. The purpose of that is to increase skills and foster greater consistency in special education across all grade levels in the district. And we see these approaches as being particularly important in addressing learning loss and moving our students forward.
Thanks, Janet. I did remember to unmute again. Must be something about doctors and muting. I don't know. Anyway, so the last thing I just wanted to talk a little bit about was around our facilities and maintenance projects, as well as capital projects that we're looking at for the summer. Obviously, we'll be doing routine preventative and maintenance projects. There were, when I arrived in the district, I discovered that there were several capital projects that had been approved but hadn't really been acted on. So we are working hard to get those projects going. So one of the projects is to replace doors, both at the Academy of Early Learning and at Newton School. And so that project has gotten its quotes, and that vendor has been contacted and is getting ready to do the door replacement. So that will take care of that project. At Discovery School at Four Corners, there's a capital project to remove asbestos floor tiles that has been awarded through the bid process. And then there's also some roof repairs that need to be done that, again, we got quotes in, are ready to go with those. At Federal Street School, there is a very urgent need to take a look at the elevators and to get those done. Specifications have been put together for the elevator project, and we hope to go out to bid very soon, so that way we can get that project up and running. We had a night custodian who wound up trapped in an elevator and had to call the police to help get him out one night. So we certainly don't want that to happen to any of our students. So that's kind of a high priority. Newton, as we said, we're looking at replacing the doors and also repaving the parking lot. I did have some exchange with Marla Warner today, and we have a set of specs ready to go and to go out to bid for the parking lot to be done. We're hopeful that we can replace some stair treads at Greenfield Middle School. That's kind of tentative. Whether we'll get that across the finish line this summer or not, we're not quite sure. But those are some major projects that have been sort of out there for a while that we want to try and at least get moving forward. So, so that's where we're at. And again, one of the things that I often stress with facilities folks, and particularly with custodians, is that they really set the tone for learning. When the schools are clean and safe and warm and inviting looking, it entices students to want to come in to learn, motivates educators to want to teach and give it their best. And so this is really a foundational piece that you know, we're looking to address through this budget and through capital projects that have been done. So with that, in the immortal words of Kai Risdall, if you listen to Marketplace on NPR, I'm going to turn it over to Andy for a look at the numbers.
Good evening, everyone. So what we have here is the summary of the FY22 budget with addressing the adjustments that have been made with the funding sources and backing in, for lack of a better phrase, into the number that was proposed by the mayor and approved by the city council. So this is again the first reset. As I've mentioned to all of us previously, we will be doing another reset in the fall once all the dust has settled regarding actual FY22 grant information. As we're beginning to close out FY21, to still discuss with as was discussed at the Budget Finance Subcommittee, the the potential of exploring things like prepaying for sped tuitions as has been done in the past. So all those things are still in play and in process. But right now, what you have here is a proposed FY22 revised budget that is balanced to the mayor and city council's number. So the process that we went through was based on the needs assessment that the administration had done when we presented you the needs-based budget. We, in a sense, took those and then looked at with our ESSER funding, the 2, 3, et cetera, all the various fundings of the ESSER funds, and started to allocate those accordingly to where it is that we felt that those funds could be used appropriately and most effectively. So you had our original gap from that original needs based was the 2.47, and then that would be, how do we fund that to get us to the mayor's number that's in the subsection B there of the 19,731,080. And then we actually had a surplus. That's what that first subtotal is, saying that we had $824,754. But then we started to go through and sort of reinstate the needs-based budget that we are going to fund through the local. And that's what items 1, 2, and 3 are in the first box. The personnel, the maintenance, and the initiatives. And then also we had our estimate for cost of living adjustments across the board. So that, when you look at that, that gets us to a balanced budget. What you have down below in the second box are the other funding sources that total that 2.47 million up top, where these are our projected, the first 5 are projected FY22 grants of the Title I, 2A, 4, Early Childhood, and IDEA. And then the 6, 7, and 8 are school choice, circuit breaker, and transportation revolving accounts. So those 2 charts give us the breakdown of how it is that we're able to still meet the needs as the administrators determine, and how it is that we're going to fund them.
My Bose headphones to my computer, but I had to resort to Google.
So
yeah.
the next step is going to be actually because of the need to get this to you, and with the requirements for the ESSER funds, as I mentioned, the next go round of a budget rebuild, that will be done, and we'll be scheduling, either over the summer, late summer, early fall, another budget finance subcommittee meeting, and where the budget finance subcommittee will do the deeper dive into the details behind this.
All right, and just last but not least, just to share with you the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds, the things that you've heard this evening from each of the cost centers and each of our senior leadership. This is how it kind of shakes out within those 2 grants at the current moment. Again, ESSER 2, is $1.8 million that you can spend over the next couple of years. ESSER 3 is a little over $4 million that can be spent, over 3 years moving forward. So this gives you some healthy balances to be able to do some other things in these grants. And the parameters of these grants can be that it can be used for technology, it can be used for infrastructure improvements, as well as academic work. There is not requirement to supplement versus supplant like there is with some of the other grants that are available to us, as well as the fact that we don't have to, do the private school share and all of those kinds of things. So these are real dollars that are available to us. And I'm sure that as the new superintendent and assistant superintendent come on board, they're going to have some other ideas that they're going to want to think about in terms of adding to the mix here. So this gives them some flexibility and some wiggle room if, these grants need to be amended moving forward. But, we'll get the initial grant applications into the DESE and get things moving forward so that these funds can be used to help do this. This is really a golden moment, thanks to the federal government, for the district to be able to move the needle forward. And so we just decided it was carpe diem. Let's embrace this moment for what it is. So that is the overview of the reset of the budget. And so I'll open it up to questions, Madam Chair, if you want to
Sure.
allow that to happen.
Thank you, Dr. Houle. Thank you, Andy, and to all the leadership staff. Just truly an amazing presentation, very well organized. And we all know I'm not a budget person, and I was able to follow along, theory to practice, the whole thing. I appreciate that. And yeah, let's do a motion, and then we'll have some discussion. How about a motion to approve the revised fiscal year 22 budget as presented?
And Madam Chair, you would need to add a number to that, and that number is $19,731,080.
As presented at $19,700,000. Say it again.
$731,080.
$731,080.
So moved by Member Ekstrom.
And a second.
Second by Wall.
That was Member Wall. And let's open it up for further discussion. Could you end the screen share, Dr. Houle?
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Y'all are going to there's a lot of people on the call, so if you are school committee members, if you have questions, you got to speak up.
I have a question or questions.
Please, Secretary Johnson-Musad, go ahead.
You might have to do your screen share again, Dr. Houle, because my question was about slide 5, which showed the tiered support model. And around the edge, it talks about these different drivers. And I just wanted to know if you could explain that a little bit more. And then I have another question.
Sure. Hold on. Let me first of all get to that slide so I don't make everybody dizzy while I flip through. So appreciate everybody's indulgence while I get there. There it is. And back up on the big screen and share one more time. Go. All right. So the drivers around this are, there are levers in which the state has identified, obviously you got to have good leadership to be able to put this model forward. And then you've got to have competency drivers, which is basically making sure that your staff has the proper professional development to implement this. This is not going to happen in one fiscal year. This is not going to happen overnight. This is a long-term commitment to this process to be able to understand, as Nancy mentioned, going into a more inclusive model at the preschool level and integrating our high needs learners with their role model peers and making sure that teachers and instructional assistants are comfortable. So those are the competency drivers. And then of course the implementation drivers are how is it actually going and measuring its success along the way. And I don't know if Andy is still on with us because now I'm into bitty screens, but one of the things that TMS does in much of its work is taking a look at what's known as value chain. So looking at, is the money and the resources you're putting at something producing the desired results? In other words, what's the problem you're trying to solve? What do you propose is going to solve it? And how are you going to know if it worked? And if it doesn't work, what are you going to do to change that? So looking at sort of that value chain. So you're going to put resources at something. Let's make sure that those resources are doing the job that you hope that they'll do.
I'm still here and well said.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And another question I had is, I know in our budget, it shows the money coming in from students opting into Greenfield Public Schools. Is there anywhere in the budget where it shows the money essentially going out because students are leaving our district?
That is
Seems-
on, if I may, that is on the city side. That is a city expense. So that would show up on the city's, on their education section. It comes right off the cherry sheet. The cherry sheet has a section for receipts, which includes the Chapter 70, unrestricted general government aid, et cetera. Then it has an assessment section, and that's where the school choice sending tuition number is. And it's maintained on a city side, and then we get the information for reporting to DESE at the end of the year report time.
I feel like in some ways that'd be helpful for me as a school committee member to look at from time to time, even though it's not part of our budget, but just to kind of see that.
I can get that as we're continuing the discussion. Hold, please. Continue
Okay,
on.
thank you both. And I'll also just say thank you so much for the presentation. Thanks to all the principals and leaders who participated in that budget process. It's very impressive. I really appreciate all of your work.
Question, Hollins?
Member Hollins, go ahead.
I had a couple questions. Our motion, just to clarify the motion, the number in the motion was 19,731,000, but on the budget sheet, it says 19,671,000. I'd like to clarify which of those, at least the budget sheet, I think it said that. And my second question is also, the heading for column G, proposed, and then H, local appropriation, the numbers are the same, but one says all funds, and the second one says local appropriation, but it looks like the numbers are the same. So is that really all funds, or are they both local appropriation? And then my real question, if I could answer.
Yes, so
my real question, other than the form, is on FY22 other funding sources, item 7, circuit breaker funding. We're talking about using 600,000 in FY22. I know there's a lot more work to do. You've mentioned that, and I agree. But am I correct that with circuit breaker, you can only hold the money for 48 months, so that anything that we have in balance as of June 30 must be spent in the next year, or else we have to return it? And if that's correct, if I'm correct, could you tell me if the balance coming in is 600,000 or more than that?
So first of all, I will take the column G and column H are the same. That's a mislabel on the part. My apologies on that. But one of the things is the comparison purposes for tonight was really column H and column L. But when we, if one of the iterations of this from Budget Finance Subcommittee, we did have the G's, and I can find that, and I'll make sure that you get that and everybody gets it. So
the one that's called all funds isn't really all funds.
For column G,
Okay,
correct. And that's also the number that we're voting, the 19,671,080 that you're referencing. That's FY21. We're not.
Okay.
So that we're voting on the column L. That's the FY22 local number down in the chart, the mayor's numbers.
Okay, thank you.
So, and then a circuit breaker, what you are allowed to carry over, it's not the 48 months, is you are allowed to carry over your prior year's balance that you received. So this still falls within the parameters of that, carrying the balance over. It's actually a little less than what it is that we received, but again, with the work that we're still going to continue to do, as of right now, we're comfortable with this number being used to do so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. And just for those following along at home, in the motion, the original amount, $19,731,080 is correct.
Yes.
Further discussion?
Yep.
From the school
Extra?
committee? Yes. Go ahead.
So I heard you say that at the Academy of Early Learning, the separate classrooms were going to become integrated into the regular, typical student classrooms. Is that something that we're looking to incorporate through the rest of the district, or is that just starting? Is the plan that would be there, and then but the models would remain the same at all of the other schools?
To the extent that it is practicable and is in line with students' individual education plans, yes. Again, tier 1 is the desired place to at least have most students, except for those who really have severe needs,
Right.
or at least some form of being able to, it's known as FAPE in the federal world, which is a free and appropriate public education or least restrictive environment, which is considered to be the regular classroom.
Right.
So it's how do we equip our general education teachers at tier 1 to be able to respond to the needs of students with special needs in a way that makes sense, and then supporting those students in either tier 2 or tier 3 to help move that needle forward.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I might, I do
Sure.
have the cherry sheet up for,
Well, you beat me to it. I have it too.
hey, you snooze, you lose, you know? All right, here we go. So the reason why it's called a cherry sheet is back in the day when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I was around and they came in paper. They came on pink cherry paper in the mail. Who knew? So they now code them in blue. I don't know if they're trying to get rid of that connotation or whatever, but basically we're looking at column E right at the moment in terms of this is the process where the budget is at right now is with the Senate Ways and Means budget proposal. The conference committee has not concluded its deliberations, and then once it goes from conference committee, it goes to the governor. So the first part of the cherry sheet always shows all of the receipts coming into a municipality. So for example, we are showing in the Senate's budget a $14,644,158 set of receipts. That includes our Chapter 70 aid. It includes charter tuition reimbursement and school choice receiving tuition. So those students who are coming into our district through school choice is a receipt on the school side of the ledger, as is the charter tuition reimbursement. There's then general government, monies that come in. So there's all sorts of receipts, and then you can see that there's a total of estimated receipts for the city of Greenfield of $18,482,086. Then we go down to assessments, and there are things like air pollution districts, other kinds of programs. But if we look down at the local part, here's where this gets charged on the city side in a municipal budget. So the students that we send out for school choice is estimated to be at $2,193,748. Now the school choice formula, back when it was first put out, was $5,000 a student. That number, that base number, has not changed. But the receiving district has the right to charge the sending district for any special education services that are delivered that are above and beyond the regular education thing. So you can't divide this number by 5,000 and get how many kids. Some kids can be just the 5,000, some kids can be 35,000. So it kind of depends on the services that are being provided. The charter school sending tuition is basically the equivalent of your per pupil cost as computed by the state per student, and the reimbursement that comes back to the district for that tuition going out is not equivalent to what goes out. So again, that gets charged on the city side. So as you can see over here, it's $3,837,466. that the assessment piece of school choice and charter school sending tuition, and that is paid out on the city side, not on the school side. So I hope that answers your question. Secretary Johnson-Musad?
It does. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll happily send this along too, so you can all see it.
And some of that sending is sending over to Franklin Tech. Or
that's a whole different animal. That doesn't fall into any of this stuff.
So
Franklin,
if someone here school choices over to Franklin Tech, that's not.
they don't.
It's not school. It's not considered school choice. I didn't think.
No, it is not. It's its own district.
Yeah.
And
we pay into the district.
Right. And so you're charged an assessment. It sort of works like a regional school district does, so that all of the member districts, their budget is figured out and based on student enrollment and all that business. Then each member of that district is charged an assessment to operate the school.
So what you're saying is, even though that there are people who are choosing to go over there and have to be paid for, that doesn't appear in school sending cost.
We're
Or
part of the district.
Its own
The
assessment.
city is a part of the district.
It is also, that is an expense also on the city side.
Yeah.
If you look in the mayor's budget in the section on education, there is since we are members of Franklin Tech, it's a regional vocational technical assessment number that is based on enrollment and so what have you. So it's separate from the school choice program.
See, sometimes I listen to the money stuff.
Well, it's, I probably the tech would have been better for me to choose a different school if I had said, I don't know, Pioneer or something. The rates that we have to pay are frustrating for me to Franklin Tech because it's not big, which is a whole different story. At any rate,
it is a whole different story. It's not really part of this
right,
discussion.
Right, exactly.
Would recommend.
So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear on that as well.
Yeah, well, and anyone who's interested in that topic should definitely talk to Mayor Wiedegartner because she's got a lot of questions about that topic.
Absolutely. So as do a lot of other mayors that she's shared with us.
Other questions from the school committee about the budget? I'm not hearing anything, so it sounds like we're ready for a roll call vote.
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson-Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Prayati?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegartner's not here. The motion carries.
Wonderful. And again, thank you to the leadership team and to the folks at TMS for all of the hard work and getting that in front of us in a way we could digest and all of the hard work to move the numbers around and make it work for the district and give us some breathing room for the next couple of years at least. That's exciting. Very exciting. Okay, at this time, we do need to do some executive session items. I would like a motion to enter into executive session pursuant, not a word I would normally use, to MGLC 30A subsection 21A, exemption reasons both 2 and 3, number 2 being to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, as well as exemption number 3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. And I do declare as well, I declare that the committee will return to open session as soon as we possibly can be with you again. So for the motion, do I have a motion to open the executive session?
So moved, Johnson-Musad.
Thank you. And a second to that? Don't all speak at once.
Hollins, second.
Okay, Member Hollins. And can we just go into a roll call vote, please?
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson-Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Prayati?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Awesome. As I said, we will return to open session. Thank you. Okay, it looks like GTV is. Thank you. So we are back in public session. I'm quickly looking to make sure we have a quorum. I believe that we do. Yep, we're good to go. So let me make sure I know what I'm doing. Okay. I would like from a member of the school committee a motion to accept the GEA Unit A settlement agreement as presented.
So moved, Johnson Musad.
In a second.
Second by Ekstrom.
Second by member Ekstrom. Do we have any public discussion? I just want to say we're excited to be moving forward into the next phase with our teachers, and we're glad to have this moving along. We will actually have to enter negotiations again soon, but we're going to take the summer for a break, is my understanding, and we will begin negotiations with the teachers union likely in the fall. But thank you for everyone who worked on this, and let's just move ahead.
Teachers and everyone in Unit A, which
Yes,
is more than
absolutely.
teachers, right? Yeah, great.
Absolutely, yes. So should we just go ahead and do a roll call vote then?
Member Karen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom,
Yes.
Member Hollins, Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Poyetti,
Yes.
Member Wall,
Yes.
motion carries.
Wonderful. And a second motion, a motion to approve the appointment of Karen Patnode as the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning.
So move.
Member Wall, and a second.
Second Hollins.
Second from Member Hollins. Any discussion or questions for the public session?
Just it was an honor to be part of the process, and I'm really, really, really pleased. It's just so great to have you on board in this role.
Awesome.
Yay.
I echo that and thank the search committee, which included Secretary Johnson Musad as well from the school committee. And we're just super excited again to be moving forward, moving in the right direction, and having Assistant Superintendent Patnode on board with us. Let's go ahead and take a vote.
Member Karen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom,
Yes.
Member Hollins,
Yes.
Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Poyetti,
Yes.
Member Wall,
Yes.
motion carries.
Wonderful.
Congratulations, Assistant Superintendent.
Congratulations, Karen. We're very excited.
Thank you. Very
for you and for the
excited.
district.
Appreciate all the support.
Awesome. All right. I would love to celebrate more. Honestly, I would, but let's move on with the rest of the agenda. We have the next item is the approval of minutes from the June 9, 2021 school committee meeting. Those were in the packet of materials for tonight's meeting. Hopefully school committee members have had a chance to review them. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from June 9?
So moved, Johnson Musad.
Secretary Johnson Musad, in a second.
Second Wall.
Member Wall, any discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Member Karen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom,
Yes.
Member Hollins,
Yes.
Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Poyetti,
Yes.
Member Wall,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. And we are going to move into the public comment portion of the meeting. I want to make one kind of programming housekeeping note before we do this. I maybe should have started the meeting with this, but I think this is an okay place to do it too, since our executive session is over. So we had a order from the governor March of 2020 that allowed us to do remote meetings because of the pandemic. That order expired and needed to have legislation put in place if any of the provisions of it were going to continue. And the legislature voted last week, Monday and Tuesday, and worked out a bill that they sent forward for the governor's signature on Wednesday of last week. I freely admit I did check to make sure that the to-go alcohol provision of the COVID extension did continue before I looked at whether or not remote meetings would continue. But remote meetings is in that bill, and they are continuing for, I believe we have until April of 2022 at least to allow this. However, we also are allowed to meet in public. I am going to be working on a policy for how we will navigate that with the school committee, including expectations around in-person attendance when we are at an in-person meeting versus remote attendance. And I will remind folks that we also, prior to the pandemic, did allow remote participation from our school committee members prior to this provision. So we have some of that policy is already in place, but as we know with our policies, they kind of need to be updated from time to time. So at this point, this is a special meeting. Our regular meeting is the second Wednesday of every month. And it kind of made sense for us to do at least the special meetings on remotely and move to a situation where we're doing in-person meetings for sure for our regular school committee meetings. That would be the second Wednesday of the month, and allowing our subcommittees, of which there are many, to also meet remotely since that platform exists and is proven and is acceptable at this point. So that was more than I probably needed to say, but I want to make sure the public and folks who are maybe not following whether or not I'm going to get a to-go cocktail as quickly and as intently as I'm following it. That's how this kind of all went down last week and why we're now back to remote meetings. So without further ado, we'll do public comment. The way we do public comment when we're in the remote environment is we start with anyone who's going to indicate in the chat function of WebEx that they would like to make a public comment by just typing their name. And we'll then move to any folks who aren't able to do that but would like to comment by phone, which is the other option for participation. And once we've cycled through all of those, we'll move to our next agenda item. I have not been paying attention, but I don't see, is there anything in the chat? Oh, okay. It looks like there is. Do you agree, Secretary Johnson-Moussaoud?
Oh, yes, Ashley Wynn. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Ashley. You have 3 minutes. Just to give us your full name and the town you live in.
Hi, yes, my name is Ashley Wynn. I live in Leverett, Mass, but I am a teacher at Greenfield Middle School. And I just wanted to say thank you to our union president, Ann Valentine, and everyone on negotiations for all their hard work on that Unit A contract. I can only imagine the hard work that went into it. Huge thanks to you all in the school committee for passing it tonight. And a tremendous congratulations to Ms. Patnode on her new position. I had no idea that was going to happen. What an exciting meeting. I'm just so excited. Huge air high fives to all, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Ashley. What a nice comment. Very nice. As you probably know, we aim to bring the entertainment at the school committee meeting. We try to do it every meeting. Sounds like we did it for you tonight. Excellent.
Thank
any
you.
other public comment that's in the chat box? Do you see any, Glenn? I don't see any.
Nope.
Okay. How about anyone that's on the phone and would like to comment? Now's your chance. Don't be shy. Just unmute and go ahead. Anyone? I'm not hearing anyone. Last call. All right, we're going to move on to our next agenda item. So we did move ahead on the budget piece. That's at item number 7 on the agenda. We've already completed that. We now have an update from Member Wall, who's been chairing the superintendent search on our superintendent search process for the next few weeks.
The next,
Is Liz here too?
are you ready? Okay, the next thing that is happening is we're doing virtual site visits to all of the candidates' places of work. Those will be on the June 23rd, 24th, 28th, 29th, and 30th. The members of the school committee have stepped up and volunteered to be one of the two that are going to each of those visits. And again, if they need me to step in, I will be happy to do that if something happens and you can't go. Then we're going to have each of the candidates come to Greenfield. And the dates for that are July 6th, 7th, 8th, 12th, and 13th. And on those dates, they will come and visit the schools and anyone else that they would like to speak with in Greenfield regarding their move to Greenfield and what's involved, and et cetera. After their day of exploring the city, they will come to the John Zahn Center, where we will have a live meeting and interview them. The school committee will. We will have a meet and greet at 5 o'clock that day. So if anyone would like to come and participate, you're welcome to do so. The meeting for interviewing them will start at 6. And I've put out an inquiry to make sure that we can do them all at the John Zahn Center and to see if we can get it broadcast or recorded. After today's meeting, I will send all of the school committee members a list of questions that you can look at, because I'm going to ask each of you to send 2 or 3 questions to Liz LaFond and me that can be used to interview the candidates. We've already talked about the fact that we have to ask each candidate the same questions. And so if you will look at the questions and get your responses back to us, we will get them organized and sent back to you with your questions. And I think that's all that I have to report. We just have a little bit more work ahead of us.
Thank you, Jean. School committee members, do you have questions or comments about what we're doing with either the virtual site visits that actually begin? The first one is tomorrow, or any of the in-person visits. Any questions or comments?
Yep, I have a question.
Member
Extra. We are recording those, right? The virtual visits?
Thank you for reminding me. We will not be recording those. It was advised against by MASC, and it's not something that any school district has ever done, and they advised against it, and so we have made that decision to not record them.
Okay.
And you know, it's similar to if we were going in person, not everyone could go on all of the visits. So that's really the impetus, is that it's not intended to be, you know, an exhaustive look at their current place of employment.
That's fine. Now I just don't have to look
Thank
for
you for bringing it up. I forgot to mention the part.
Yeah, now I just don't have to be looking for a recording. When's it coming? When's it coming? Because there won't be one. That's
well, I would say, I would encourage the school committee members who did not sign up to do any virtual visits to find one where they can offer to sub in for those of us who are doing too many of them. That would be really super helpful, because it's like 3 of us are doing the bulk of them, and that could it should probably be a little bit more even. And then for Jean is working on the logistics for getting our community-based question and answer for the candidates when they come on site. Hopefully we can do those at the John Zahn. We may or may not be able to have access to GCTV for those. That's all being worked out now. But do please, school committee members, put those on your calendar, and if you're able, attend all of those. All 5. We're going to like each other a whole lot more by the time we get to July 14th. Dr. Hull, did I see your hand?
Yes, you did. Member Wall, if I remember correctly from the special meeting about the superintendent search, that you were looking for parents, students, and teachers to meet with the candidates.
Each of the candidates sent a list of the people they would like to meet with. So your part of it will be the students, parents, teachers, the faculty part.
Okay, because I want to be able to reach out this week to give people the heads up that they're coming. And you and I can connect by phone about the details so we don't bog down the meeting tonight. Thank you.
And I just wanted to add, Amy, if I may, that those of you who are going to the virtual on-site visits, please take good notes because you'll need to report back on what you found at the visits.
Is there a template from MASC for taking notes on those things?
I sent them to everybody. And it was lots of reading, so maybe you haven't gotten around to it yet.
I'm going to go. You sent it in an email. I'll make sure I have it.
Right. And I'll resend it if you don't.
Thank you.
And I'm sending you a worse one tonight, so go for it.
Oh, lucky me. Lucky me. So Member Wall, about the virtual visits, if you are able, or if another school committee member who is able to cover the one tomorrow with Glenn, I would greatly appreciate. I'll do the other ones that I'm assigned to, but that one was not the one I anticipated being assigned to. I will do it if I absolutely have to, but if Member Wall or anyone else could cover it, that would be awesome.
That is literally the only one that I could not do.
Oh, good. You can take one of my other ones.
That's fine.
No, I'm just kidding.
Honestly, that's fine because I'm looking at it. Going, I was looking at your face, going, she's telling me I need to do one, and was looking at it right now. Tomorrow is the only one that I can't do. I'm glad to do any of the others.
Okay. Well, remember, while you had said that you could do the one tomorrow for me, so I will take you up on that if that's okay.
Okay.
And I'll stick with the other ones.
Okay, that's fine.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that.
So I won't be around to talk on the phone.
Oh yeah, that one's I think 10 a.m.
Until after 2.
Yeah, sorry.
Member Wall, can we meet briefly before we start tomorrow just to kind of get organized a little?
Yes.
Should I just call you on your phone or?
Please.
Okay, great. I'll call you like 15 minutes ahead of time.
Is that enough?
Half an hour?
Sure.
Okay.
And I'll call you after 2 o'clock. I'll be somewhere on the bike, somewhere.
A whole day of school committee, yay.
It's nothing else to do while you're riding down the main dirt bike. You might as well.
Okay, and I'm not hearing any pressing discussion on this one, so I want to thank you, Jean, again for all of this, the logistics and the planning and the question answering, and I appreciate all the effort you're putting into it. I'm looking forward to the next 3 weeks of getting this stuff in front of the community and being able to talk to these folks and move Greenfield forward, right? It feels like this is a big meeting for moving us forward, which is wonderful. All right, so we don't have any motions on the table. I suggest that we move forward, and you can speak up and disagree before I move on to the next item. All right, perfect. So approval of job descriptions. We have 2 job descriptions that have been worked on through the Personnel Committee. And I do believe these are in, yes, they are in the materials that were posted to the website for tonight's meeting. So anyone who wants to look at them can look them up in the packet of materials. Let's do Director of Facilities and Grounds first. So to start the discussion, I would take a motion to approve the Director of Facilities and Grounds job description as presented.
Move.
That was Member Wall, and a second?
Second, Johnson Musad.
Thank you from Secretary Johnson Musad, and let's discuss. Anyone? Member Hollins, go ahead.
I looked at this carefully and I followed Glenn's suggestion that if there was any suggestion to put it in writing, and I sent that document to the school committee. I found there were a few things that really were missing, and I hope it'll be reviewed. All mention of working with the city are not included. And it seems important even and following up on capital projects that have been approved, implementing them as a responsibility wasn't included. So, developing a 5-year capital plan. The city actually has a 5-year capital plan for every building, and we need to be connected to that. Another thing that I thought was, this isn't judgmental, I'm just saying there's some important things that aren't, it's not a criticism of the group, just some important things I thought were in there. One of the really important issues for me, and I think for lots of people, is that we're using toxic-free chemicals, cleaning chemicals, and we try to really work on environmental issues in the school, and that wasn't included. And the last thing that wasn't included that seemed important is there's no equity statement, and there's a lot of, hiring of people and people working on projects. So I looked at some other position descriptions, and I read through this one carefully, and I thought it needed some additional work before we fix it for the district. Thank you.
Okay, Member Hollins, did you have suggested wording that you're bringing forward? Are you expecting these changes to be made tonight? How do you want that? What are you looking for here?
I made very specific suggested wording. I didn't think any of it was just wordsmithing. I thought it was all kind of substantive. And I put it right in the body of the draft. And I didn't think we would do that here tonight. No, I thought.
That's fine. So as I suggest, okay, I understand. As I suggested the last time we went through these job descriptions, is that we need a starting point, and job descriptions are dynamic documents. And what I would suggest is that any wordsmith suggestions would be brought to, or any suggestions for changes would be brought to the committee that actually addresses them. The committee voted unanimously to bring this forward. This is an excellent starting point for what we need to do. And my understanding is that in many cases, the job descriptions that we have currently are woefully outdated, or we're not even sure what is current. So this gives us at least a current, accurate baseline to move forward with. Does that make sense? I'm asking you a question. Go ahead. You don't need to raise your hand.
It makes sense that we have a starting point. It doesn't make sense to me that we vote a document if it's not an emergency. If anyone else recognizes there's something significant that's not in it that should be in it. So my opinion is that having no mention of collaborating with the city, not with DPW, not on capital planning, that's significant. That's all.
Okay. So we'll take that back. We'll take that under advisement and back to the committee. But I would like to vote on the document as presented tonight. Thank you for that. Secretary Johnson-Musad, question or comment?
Yeah, the comment was, I mean, I'm not sure, Member Hollins, that you really understood what I was suggesting. And I think emailing us suggested language changes on an item that we're deliberating about, for me, raises open meeting law concerns. I think that what I was trying to say was, if you have a change, like to request like a friendly amendment from the person making the motion with the exact language in the course of the meeting itself. I wasn't really suggesting necessarily sharing. Anyway, I don't, it looks like Dr. Houle has her hand up. I'd be interested in her comment, but that was what I was thinking anyway. I just want to be clear about, I think, what I was trying to communicate. And again, I think I'm hearing you again say, like, I have concerns about this. These are the comments that I submitted, but at no point are you making a motion or requesting a friendly amendment. We're kind of using Robert's Rules of Order to advance the work of the committee. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Johnson. Dr. Houle, go ahead.
If the chair would so like, I do have Member Holland's suggested edits to the 2 bullet points around collaborating with the city, and maybe at least as a baseline, maybe amend it to include those 2 things. So let me just share my screen.
I'm not trying to stifle making changes. So absolutely, if that's easy enough to do and we can follow along with the changes.
So the 2 collaboration with the city items are in items number 4 and number 5, and you can see in red Member Holland's suggested wording changes. I can blow this up a little more if people. No, maybe I can't.
I can see it okay. But thank you
There
for
we
the
go.
color coding. That helps quite a bit. I don't have any
So-
problem with those changes, but I didn't make the motion. I think, am I remembering Secretary Johnson Musad? Did you make the motion?
I think I did.
Member Wall? Would
And I
you
may have
accept a
seconded.
friendly amendment to your motion?
Sure.
And who made the second?
I think I did, and yes.
Yeah. No, I think these are great changes. I don't have a problem with that at all. And as Secretary Johnson Musad pointed out, I think the help would come, Member Hollins, from in your role actually bringing something like this rather than bringing it up in discussion several times and not bringing the actual changes to the appropriate place to make it. We can work with what we can see in front of us and all deliberate on together. Absolutely. Further
Can I make one
discussion
more
on this?
comment?
Go ahead.
I'd like to recommend adding what I put as item number 8.
Which is what?
If Judy will scroll that up. Continues the district's interest in Greenfield.
I won't vote for that. I can tell you. You're asking for the environmental piece.
Okay, so I have one last comment. I went to this meeting. I was only allowed to speak before there was any discussion, so that's okay. And I was told that since I made comment that my what I had submitted would be part of the public record. So to Glenn's comment about open meeting, I'd like to request that the 2 documents I sent to the school committee be included in the record of this meeting since I'm speaking to them. Thank you.
Okay, and let me clarify my opposition to number 8. As far as I'm concerned, that is a policy decision, a mission decision for the district. It's not something you put in a job description that they have to hire, that they have to buy specific types of products. Dr. Houle. She's going to disagree with me, maybe.
No, actually, state regulations require that we, focus on those things. So I don't know that you need it in a job description because there's regulatory, direction for that at the state level. So for example, all schools must have an integrated pest management system. You can't just blast a building with chemicals for termites. You have to have an integrated pest management system, those kinds of things. So those things are already codified in regulation at the state level. So I think from that particular point, that's covered.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's for me, the thing that is a red flag right away is that's not something that belongs in a job description. It's something that belongs in policy. And that is where the state has decided to put it. So kudos to state of Massachusetts. All right, further discussion on this job description and any of the friendly amendment that we've made. I'm not hearing anything, so let's move to a vote.
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Poyetty?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we'll move on to the Director of Pupil Services job description and start with a motion to approve the Director of Pupil Services job description as presented.
So moved, Johnson Musad.
Thank you. In a second. Anyone? I'll second it. How about that?
Right.
Let's discuss. All right, Member Hollins, go ahead.
I reviewed this one carefully also, and I also sent my suggestions to the full committee. And I don't have a double screen computer, so I can't pull that up and look at it at the same moment I'm talking. However, I want to make this comment about the job description, which I think I made when I sent a text. The title of this job is Director of Pupil Services. And that means something different in a lot of places. In my note to the school committee, I sent the law for the special ed administrator that this person under the law is responsible for the entire shebang of special ed, everything. And there's one item missing, I believe, in this job description, that however you want to process that, is that the person oversees our compliance review, which is done every 6 years, and handles any corrective action. That's a big project. It's not in the current job description. I added an item for that. The other thing I want to mention is I don't think this job description is explicit about what programs other than special ed are in this department. It alludes to the person should know the laws for some different things. But it's different from district to district what's included. And the law about the special ed administrator says you can add all kinds of things to this position as long as the person has the capacity to do that. So I think our job description should be explicit and say, this Director of Pupil Services handles all special ed and also is the district-wide coordinator of, if it's 504 and ELL and health services, to state that. But I made I thought it was a well-done job description, but I thought there were two important items that should be included. I'll try to remember them. One is to resolve parent complaints promptly, expeditiously, and using the state's system of complaint response management or something. That's missing. And the second one is handling the district's annual civil rights audit. And those two are not there, and they're very important roles, in my opinion. I don't know how to handle that, but those were my comments to the committee.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or discussion on that? In speaking directly to those items, Member Hollins, and seeing that this job description is in a completely different place in terms of the personnel needs than the one we just talked about, what I would like to do is make no changes to what we're proposing at this time and actually bring your suggestions back to the Personnel Committee to update the job description. And to be more specific, we will be moving forward with a search for a new Director of Facilities and Grounds. And we already have someone in the position on a multi-year contract for the special ed, the Director of Pupil Services position. So I think they're in different places, and I would like to just move forward with a vote and move on and have those changes be reflected in an update to the job description, if you can live with that.
I can if there's a time. Will it be in the next 3 months or something?
We have a committee that addresses those issues, and we'll have them take it up as business at their next meeting. But there's not, as I stated, there's not a pressing issue here. I think it can move forward without those items being added tonight. Further discussion or questions, comments?
Yeah,
Amy,
I think that's right. I think you're both right. Susan, yes, I think those things need to be added. And Amy, yes, I don't think that we have to do it right now because we're not trying to hire someone, but it certainly will need to be looked at before and going forward. I think you're both correct. Essentially is what I'm saying.
Thank
you. Member Karen, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead. And then Dr. Houle.
Not a pressing matter. Instead of voting it to accept it as it is, in the past, we've often just sent it back to the subcommittee. I don't care. I don't know if that's an option in this case. Instead of saying, oh, we're going to accept it and then change it next week, we could just say, let's send it back to the subcommittee and then change it then. It's up to you guys. I don't know if there's a reason not to do it that way, but we do that a lot with policies and other types of things.
Not opposed to that at all. I like that option. Yeah. Dr. Houle and then Member Hollins.
Actually, it was, member Karen said 99% of what I was going to say. So that's awesome that we're thinking along the same lines, because that certainly is something that, you can do is just choose to send it back. And just so you know that Dr. Ekstrom, no relation to member Ekstrom, is also working with the Director of Pupil Services on how the department is organized and all of that. And they've made some good progress, but haven't totally finished the work. So I think sending it back might make some sense, and then bringing forward revisions based on what Member Hollins has shared with the committee, as well as what we see in terms of trying to do some reorganization around that department in the future.
One last comment. I'd like to thank Katie for her comment, because in my view, anytime a member of this committee, for whatever reason, spends a lot of time on something out of committee and brings back suggestions, it feels like it's purposeless if people just say, well, thanks, we're going to ignore it and move on. And, and it's fine if you want to do that. But if there's no emergency, I think it isn't a bad idea, no matter who the person is, if they know something about what we're doing and they've spent time articulating some suggestions, it's reasonable not to vote it and to at least look at it. Maybe there's something good that somebody thought of. That's all.
Any other further comments? So I think what we should actually do is withdraw the motion, right? Yeah. I think I seconded it, which I'm fine with. Who made the motion? Was it Secretary Johnson-Musad? Was it you?
Yeah, I'm fine with withdrawing. Do we need to have a vote to send it back to committee, or do we want to just?
Let's vote. Yeah.
I'll move that we direct the personnel committee to do another draft of this based on the feedback provided by members tonight.
I'll second that. And any further discussion? How about we just do a roll call vote then?
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes, and thank you.
Secretary Johnson-Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Prietti?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you all for, see, teamwork makes the dream work. Look at that. We are on to our second reading and vote on 3 policies, which again are in the materials for the meeting tonight, and we have seen them before. I would entertain at this time a motion to accept the policies presented for a second reading as a consent item for ACAB, IHBAA, and JICFB.
So moved.
Come on, guys. I did the hard part. Member Wall said so moved there. And the second.
Shouldn't we do each of them separately? No, Judy says no. Fine.
You can do these as a consent agenda.
Seen them all. This is a second read. You can bring. You're still welcome to bring up any questions.
That's fine.
Okay. So are you seconding? Oh, did I second it? I don't remember.
I don't know. I can second it. Whatever.
There we go. Okay. Discussion on any of these? I love the silence. Let's move it to a vote. You're voting on policies ACAB, IHBAA, and JICFB. And now I have my own radio station.
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins? She left. Member Secretary Johnson-Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Prietti?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, folks, we are making some headway here. We are on to our last item of business. Approval of the amended 2021-2022 school calendar, which I can let Dr. Houle do a quick overview of if necessary, but basically it was tweaked to add the Juneteenth holiday, which falls on June 19th. And of course, the first 2 years this was implemented it's on a weekend. This year it was on Saturday, just this past Saturday, and next year it will be on Sunday. So the calendar was tweaked to put the holiday on Monday, the 20th, and the last day of school, should we have 5 snow days, will be June 23rd, if I'm remembering it correctly. Because look, I'm not even looking at it. I'm looking at you all.
All right.
So, yeah.
June 22nd actually would be the last day of school for the 5 snow days. The other
Okay.
the other piece was that we also, for reasons that seem to be just because we've always done it this way, our preschoolers were coming in later than their kindergarten counterparts and ending the year earlier than their kindergarten counterparts. And as you know, Principal Putnam noted earlier, we're really trying to have them be in a more inclusive environment and to give them more time on learning, even though they don't fall under those regulations. But obviously, the stronger the foundation you can build at the preschool level, the better. So this calendar reflects that they would mirror the kindergarten schedule. I did share this with the president of the association for their contract, and there is no objection to these changes on the part of the GEA.
Awesome.
I
So how about,
imagine that's actually going to be a welcome, since that's been something of a sticking point previously with doing negotiations.
yeah. How about a motion to approve the amended 21-22 school year calendar as presented?
So moved by Ekstrom.
And a
Second, Johnson Musad.
Wonderful. Any further discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm going to say it out loud. We actually didn't have all that crazy winter weather this year. And so even had we been in school, I don't know that we would have had 5 snow days. So here's my question. What do we do how do we handle celebrating Juneteenth if the year isn't in session beyond that date?
At this point, it is both a state and a federal holiday. So obviously, we gave it to our employees. This would also be a matter for negotiations and putting in the individual collective bargaining agreements, et cetera. So that's something that certainly moving forward in your negotiations will need to be thought through. But whenever the 180th day is when it is. We are required by state regulation to build the 5 snow days into the calendar so that they exist. But whenever 180 comes, it comes. So that's basically how it works.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
And speaking from someone who's on a negotiated union contract that includes lots of holidays, there are ways in bargaining that you can move forward with discussing how to handle it when the holiday doesn't get to be taken by all of the members of a unit. There are ways to address it.
And this does.
I was just devil's advocating.
Yeah.
So.
And so, kind of following Dr. Hull's logic, we could end up in a situation where you have the observation of Juneteenth, and then the very next day is the last day of school, and that's it. So you're coming back for one day after a holiday. So that's kind of what would have happened if we had
this year.
It's amended the calendar that way this year. But I'm glad going forward that this is getting institutionalized. It's a very important holiday, and I'm really glad this is happening.
Same. Thank you for that discussion. Any other questions, comments before we take a vote? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Proietti?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Awesome. How about a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Member Wall, and a second.
Second by Ekstrom.
Any discussion? No. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Member Karen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom,
Yes.
Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Poyetti,
Yes.
Member Wall,
Yes.
motion carries.
Excellent work, folks. We're adjourned at 7:59 p.m. Happy vacation, Dr. Hool.
Enjoy the vacation.
Enjoy it.
Great. See you all soon.
Bye.